Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappist. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 77 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. My name is indeed Lick Lincoln, and joining me as ever in the digital studio of doom are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse. Alan, the storyteller Smith, Carl, the voice, still a Voce Widger,
Hello.
and Andy Ultra Heart, who for some reason doesn't appear to have his video on, so I hope you're there, Andrew, and you're also muted, as are you, Alan. Right, gents, without any further ado, class, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's a chaotic start. Gentlemen, without any further ado, let's put a topical timestamp on this episode. No, we don't do that. We won't do that. Let's go straight, first of all, to my good friend, the Right Honourable Mr. Andrew Ursane Hart, for some more high-energy review reads.
Oh, you nearly slipped up there, Nicholas. Okay,
No, I didn't. You did.
Okay, fine. Annoyingly, I have to quickly run off and work out who this review is from. It's from Ollie McDonald, 5 stars, entitled Incredibly Helpful. Essential listening for those in the profession or not. You may not agree with everything they say, and that's okay. I've recommended this podcast to several younger new advisors. A special overdue thank you to 2 of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Before Alan was famous, I reached out when starting my IFA firm 4 years ago. He was kind enough to give me 30 minutes over Zoom. Anyone wants 30 minutes with Alan, just email him directly. He's happy to help.
That's before I was famous.
Guided me on several subjects. Alan introduced me to the awesome Hum and Dimensional. A second thanks goes to Andy for running Hum, which I've attended since 2021. There, I met my now outstanding employee, Luke, who joined me as a protection advisor, then trainee IFA, and now a fully fledged IFA, and is crushing it. Keep up the good work. Back to you, Nicholas.
Thanks for that, Ultra. So, also, I think on the slate that you've got a link to like a review site, Raphonic. That looks interesting. I'll have a look at that.
Because you deleted it, Nick, so I re-put it back there.
I didn't
anyway,
delete
let's
anything.
move on.
I didn't delete anything.
That's detail. That's detail.
I didn't delete anything. I can go through the Google Doc history and see who deleted it, Andrew, if you want me to confirm it wasn't me. It makes you feel better. Okay, let's put a topical.
But just on that, isn't that a good? That's a good news story, isn't it? Ollie there listens to TRAP, speaks to me. I introduce him to Hum, goes to Hum, meets a colleague, starts a business. All that is
That is basically how this business works. Yeah, I mean, I reached out to people, went for coffees, went on a few investment courses, went to some conferences, met some other people. Rocked up to Watford to meet Nick, and the rest is, as they say, history. So yeah, that's how it works. It's a great business. Very
it's a good news story.
High on networking,
and it's not the first time we've had a good news story like that. We get a lot of those, don't we? Which is lovely. We really appreciate it.
But I guess the point here is you got to put yourself out there too, don't you? So you got to make yourself make yourself uncomfortable, and good things will happen.
Exactly. I've made I spent my whole life making myself uncomfortable.
Carl will give you all the time you need.
Email Carl and CC them both in on all emails regarding any TRAP questions about anything. Okay, let's put a timestamp on episode 77 of the Real Advisor Podcast TRAP with some topical tidbits. Wodge, lead off.
Yeah, so a star fund manager fund starts to slide.
No,
it's kind of tongue in cheek putting that in. Ironically, or maybe very predictably, as soon as Warren Buffett announced he was stepping down as the head honcho in Berkshire Hathway, the shares have had their worst slide in 30 years in terms of underperformance versus the S&P. So they've slid back over the last 3 months, while the S&P has kind of gained some of the ground that it had lost after Trump's tariffs. So look, I just said it'd be an interesting discussion to have, right? Or just to chat about it. We've often said, that star fund managers, they don't work. We might mention Neil Woodford here. He's probably the quintessential British star fund manager, and there are others too. So Is it all down to Warren Buffett? Have we oversold it ourselves? I know Andy's a huge fan. Nick, what do you think?
I'm a bit shocked that the share prices have slid in this announcement. How old is Warren Buffett?
94.
95 on the 30th of August.
Yeah, the reason I'm shocked, Ultra, if he was 45 and out of the blue said, I'm about to retire, he's 95, he could die tomorrow. I mean, surely this has been priced in for a while, the fact he won't be around for another couple of years more. It just seems a bit odd.
Well, they've had such a sort of overperformance in the last couple of years leading up to it anyway. So I think they're down about 15%. So currently the share price for a single share is around $700,000, which in itself is insane. He's never done a stock split. He's never done a stock split. At one point, it was at 800,000. He wanted to never do a stock split because he doesn't want to encourage trading. You can't just trade in and out of a $700,000 share. You've got to have a few quid. So the turnover of the shares of the company is very low compared to others. Anyway, there's a lot of other things with him.
Isn't the a lot of this will be down to the fact that he very publicly moved, I can't remember how much, some ridiculous level into cash. About a year ago.
It's the highest cash holding I think they've got at the moment, mainly treasuries and cash, yeah.
Yes, it's in cash while the S&P continues on a tear. So,
The other interesting thing that I read, I don't think it was in that particular article that I've shared, but in another one, was that this year is the first year in a while they haven't done any share buybacks. So is that message to the market that they think that it's
their
overpriced?
own shares are overpriced? Correct.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, isn't it? Especially, when you consider what Alan has just said about the cash position as well. So anyway, it's just interesting. And let's see what happens. This is like Alex Ferguson leaving Man United, isn't it? The next guy in is like,
I think
he's
probably
doomed.
I don't think we've ever had an exit on this scale. But it's a similar comparison, yeah.
But really, the Berkshire Hathway thing is more of a process, isn't it? And it's all outlined and documented. You just pick up old insurance companies and cash-generating companies and stick with them forever. So maybe it won't be a massitive change.
It's a little bit more complex.
No, that's it. I've read. No. I've read some books. That's it. Right. Let's go on to the next topical tidbit, which is me. Okay. So I had a client interaction. What day we? No, last week. Sorry, it's some holidays. Everything becomes a blur, doesn't it? Last week, this lady is. She's taking she's doing a lifestyle career change, which is great because I've been working with her and her husband for years, and I've said to this lady who has a high stress job at the minute, you can afford to take your foot off and do a lifestyle change and do something actually that satisfies your values a bit more. So she's doing that. She's taking quite a significant drop in remuneration to go from a highly stressed job to a job that I think she's going to really like. But the package is likely to come in at about £110,000 salary. And she knew enough to be dangerous, like a lot of our clients do. And she goes, Nick, I know about this thing at 100K, but I've just come back from holiday and I Googled pensions and salary sacrifice, and now my head hurts. And that was literally her email to me. So we went through the thing. And of course, it's this thing in the UK where once your earnings exceed £100,000, for every £2 over that, you lose £1 of personal allowance. So that at £125, £140, you've lost your personal allowance. You're paying tax at 40%. You're paying national insurance at 2%. Effectively, the marginal rate of tax on income over 100K up to that 125, 140 point is 62%. So I said to her, listen, if you take a package at 110, that extra 10 grand over the 100, you're going to net 3,800. And she said to me, well, bugger that, then we'll do the salary sacrifice thing. So she's going to do that, which everyone does. And I put a tweet out about it saying our tax system is insane. And by my standard, I'm not the League of Storyteller yet. Maybe I never will be, but my side is this thing went kind of viral. I had best part of 1,000 likes and over 160 reposts on X. But the interesting thing wasn't so much my tweet, because this fact has been around since 2009. Alistair Darling brought in this 100K cliff edge thing. The interesting thing was all the comments I got, because normally on social media, as we're all aware, you can get some antagonistic replies, and I'm as bad as anybody at this sometimes. But nearly all of the comments...
Yes, you are.
I am, yeah, I am. Nearly all of the comments were, yeah, absolutely. I've got clients who are doing the same. There are comments from accountants, comments from company owners saying, I've got staff who I try and give pay rises to, and they just don't want it. They'd rather have time off than earn above 100K. And I just think, if anything, is indicative of the fact we have this productivity crisis in the UK, where GDP per capita is still not where it was before the pre-Wuhan lab leak episode. It's things like this crazy, perverse tax system
You know, it's just insane, and it sends out all the wrong incentives. And if that 100k barrier had been just indexed in line with CPI, now it should be £163,000. So imagine how many people have been caught in this over the years and now just declining. I don't want that promotion. I won't take money out of my business over 100k. Money they could be spending in the economy, right? Money that would still be taxed, generating more taxation. People just are not doing it. So the sooner this thing is got rid of, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, do we want to talk about Rachel Reeves or not, Andrew?
Well, I think it's a wider issue, Nick. You're talking about the income tax issue here, which is important. A lot of end consumers also get confused when they go into the high rate of 40%. I remember, just keep it simple, above 50k it goes to 40%. People were petrified of having, a wage rise above that because they thought their entire income would be taxed at 40%. So there's this, financial investing illiteracy issue in the UK. Tax is dreadfully boring. Tax is dreadfully confusing. But in the UK especially, our tax code is just enormous. We've also got the other issue of VAT. So you've got people that are running micro businesses that don't want to go above 90,000 because then they're in the whole VAT pain. I think the quarterly VAT return for humans under management, no joke, I use accountancy software. I think the last time we did it was 470 pages for a quarterly VAT return for a tiny business. It's all automated. It's every tiny bits of slices here, there and everywhere, but it's just insanely complicated. So yeah, it's there's messes everywhere when it comes to tax.
Yeah, and something that people also pointed out, which I wasn't aware of because my son is way beyond qualified for this, but if you earn a penny over 100k, you lose all tax-free childcare vouchers towards getting that childcare supported. And so if you've got to hire then someone to look after your kid, that's an enormous cost that comes as well. So all these disincentives just stacked up, and it's like, the economists, they think we're all, they don't understand human nature. They think they don't look at secondary consequences, these treasury people.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, it's the unintended consequences. It's the knock-on effects.
It's the knock-on effect, man. And
it's bizarre that they haven't indexed it at any level.
They haven't. All of our allowances, Carl, haven't been indexed for years and aren't going to be. But this one particularly, if you think that should be £163,000 now. And 100k is not a massive salary anymore, really. It's a nut.
And do the credits not get indexed in each budget every year? Because that's what happens here. Is that
they sometimes did, but in previous years they've been frozen. But Nick, remember when inflation was double digits? Imagine if that was linked to some sort of inflation figure. I mean, it would just be an astronomical.
Yeah, but it should be. And I think they link everything to CPI, which isn't real inflation. It assumes everyone shops at bloody Primark. It strips out everything that goes up in real cost. But we'll go with it. Even if it's CPI, it should be 163k.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Very interesting.
All right.
Well, as the aforementioned Warren Buffett's historical sidekick Charlie Munger famously said, he was a big advocate of understanding incentives. Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. Yeah. And these are all very negative incentives for people for productivity.
Just to close on this, the UK tax code now runs to just over 10 million words. By way of comparison, the complete works of Shakespeare come in at just under 1 million. And you wonder why people don't know what the hell they're going. This client of mine, she's bright, she's super bright, driven, on her game, and she just looked at this for like 5 minutes and her head was spinning, and she deferred to an expert, and when he wasn't around she came back to me. So all good.
I think it is one of the biggest in the world, isn't it? I think Hong Kong is famously
Hong Kong is just just under
150 pages.
Yeah, it's tiny. It's 150,000 words. Ours is 10 million. I mean, good grief.
And growing.
Oh, my God.
Well, okay, right, let's move on. Some of it goes back 1,000 years. They've got all sorts of weird taxes that have never applied. Honestly, I've never looked at it.
Something applies to silver coins and gold coins and windows.
Window tax, literally. Yeah.
Daylight robbery.
Yeah. Anything, takings from pilgrimages and conquests get a special tax.
Anything found on boats.
Crusades, you get a 5 shilling exemption on the first 3 heads you decapitated. Whatever. Right, let's move on.
It just doesn't, for me, just seem like a very progressive kind of culture over there. But anyway,
our tax system is terribly progressive, Carl, and that's the problem with it.
That's the problem.
Right. What's the next thing on the
Talking
slate?
of progress.
Yes.
I just wanted to, very briefly, mention the fact that There has been there's been progress on the cryptocurrency investing, or let's say specifically Bitcoin. The regulator in the UK has relaxed their stance a little bit, and as from October in the UK, retail customers will be able to invest in cryptocurrency, aka Bitcoin, through a lesser-known product called an exchange-traded note, an ETN, which you've got to do a bit of research to even find out what these things are. But they are a form of debt instrument, but it's a facility whereby you can invest in, let's call it, invest in Bitcoin via your anything, do it directly via your pension fund, via your ISA in theory. And therefore, I'm imagining as an independent firm, we've all got to at least recognize, acknowledge. If you want to dismiss it, feel free to dismiss, but you've got to, like we're expected to do with all investments, provide a whole of market review of all the investment opportunities that exist. So just flagging it up that slowly but surely, Bitcoin is becoming more mainstream. Investors will be asking you about it. Quick shout out again to friend of the podcast, Dan Parkinson, Bitcoin IFA. If any listener to this podcast wants to learn a bit more, he's got a whole series of webinars and what have you, and there is a discount for TRAP audiences if you want to sign up for that. There's a link in the show notes for that, and put the just put TRAP in the checkout thing. So just want to flag that up before and move on before Crypto Carl gets twitchy.
No. I think I've been consistent to this, and look, the point I would make is I when we started talking about this, probably, is it a year ago, maybe even more?
Yeah.
I was saying that until this becomes, more in the mainstream, it's not something that I'm going to consider. And I have said in the last couple of episodes, that's what seems to be happening. It is entering the mainstream. I think any advisory firm ignoring it at this stage, I would say you're ignoring it at your peril. You at least need to know about it. And like you're saying, Alan, if it's available now and people are asking about it, well, you need to make sure you know the ins and outs of it and how clients can invest in it, and what are the fees associated with, what are the tax issues. Can it go in a pension fund? Is it straight about all the various consequences of a decision by a client? So, and it's up to us to decide individually, I guess, as a firm at a firm level. Well, are you advising it? And maybe it's an execution only kind of a scenario, but I think it isn't coming into the mainstream for absolute sure. Yeah.
Okay. Just thinking this a little bit further through. Obviously, when the detail is revealed, we'll discuss it a bit more. But how do we see this playing out, guys? Are just the main players that we know going to enter it? Are we going to see a shed load of money go to it early on? I don't think so. It's not covered by the FSCS, so we've got a bit of an issue on that, on PI and things. So it's not going to be an absolute overload from day one. So.
I would guess, Andy, that this is the kind of toe in the water, right? Yeah. But I think, roll this on 12 months, there's going to be other products available. And I do believe for sure that, a lot of multi-asset funds, right, the portfolio type funds will have some level
exposure.
Of cryptocurrency exposure. Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to go. So again, if you're burying your head in the sand and ignoring it, I think you'll be left behind.
Well, I think that the UK usually follows the US several years later. You look at that BlackRock IBIT, the BlackRock ETF, which is the single most successful ETF launch in history. BlackRock, I'm sure, would love to launch a version in Europe, in the UK, when regulation permits, and that's just that's moving from an ETN, which is a bit out of our wheelhouse, I think, into a more mainstream provider, investment asset manager that we all know and are familiar with a product structure that we are more familiar with.
Yeah,
and that happens, then people are going to be asking about it, and it's I'm on a bit of a Charlie Munger theme as well. Another great thing that he said when he's discussing, whatever your position is, understand your opponent's position better than they do, something like that. Remember, he used to say, so
Yeah.
you really need to understand. So if you are anti-Bitcoin,
Well, you need to understand both sides of the argument. Yeah.
Understand the position of the proponents of those who are putting forward. Understand your position better than they do, so you can articulate that. And I think that's the whole point. And I think our whole conversation through this has been pretty good, has been consistent, and Carl's has been a good point. But we are seeing progress. Things are evolving, things are moving, and therefore you just simply need to understand. The get out of jail card was, it's not regulated, it's Wild West, it's nothing to do with us, we're proper investors, we're proper advisors. You're no longer going to be able to hide behind that. So at least understand so that you can articulate your position, whether you're in or out. Do your research.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll be taking it incredibly slowly. I think since I've launched Maven Advisor in 2017, I think I've made 0 changes to my investment portfolios, as in I picked the right funds and I've stuck with them. So making changes is going to be a very, very slow process. And I think it's the same for a lot of other regulated firms.
Agreed.
Don't play it, Nick.
I did play it and it hung, so I just the moment's come and gone now.
I'm just saying I'm not changing my portfolios. I think it's a good position to be in.
The better line is that I chose the right funds.
No, I got lucky. I say I got lucky. I choose fund managers that I had.
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy. He knows about everything, Andy. Can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart!
Andrew, a phrase that no doubt you're using quite heavily at the moment, of course, is nada es tan bueno en todo como yo.
Yes.
Nobody is as good as everything as me in Spanish.
Great, thank you.
Good. Right, let's move on to Wodge.
Is this the PE firms?
Could well be.
Yeah, okay. So, I have. There's 2 interesting articles that I picked out here. One is about. I'm sure it's the same in the UK, that there's a lot of private equity firms hoovering up kind of mid-tier accountancy firms, and it seems to be, the way things are going. So I think in general, perhaps some of the smaller firms are finding it, maybe difficult in the accountancy profession, maybe a little bit more difficult to operate because of regulation and that. But I do know that accountancy firms kind of struggled to have an exit because it was like, well, what's the value of an accountancy firm? And the valuations were much lower than what we would be used to in our business, because I guess they don't have recurring income per se. Obviously, they have recurring clients, but they can't go for absolute sure. Capital Asset Management is going to be a client of ours next year, whereas our business is much more sticky. Anyway, there's a lot of private equity activity in that business. And this article, this is funny that we mentioned it already. This article kind of goes and talks about unintended consequences. And now that traditionally these businesses were owned by partnerships, and those partnerships were liable for audits, etc. But now if you have new owners, private equity owners, who are looking to drive profit, after all, we all know it's a medium hold at best, and they're going to maybe try and flip it on. Well, are there conflicts of interest around behaviors around audit? And it wasn't calling anybody out. It was just a general
observation,
kind of discussion around this topic. And I just thought, is that similar for advisors, in our space, that, is that fiduciary duty that you should be bound by, as in you're acting in your client's best interest all the time? Well, if you sell out to a private equity house, is there going to be an issue around that? And a little bit like the article, I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying it's something that, people need to be aware of. So that was kind of the first article that I picked out. So Andy, I think or Nick, you've a comment on that before I move on to the second one.
Yeah, just interesting. The thing you mentioned there about accountants not having recurring income, just asking the 3 of the other members of the Trap Pack. I pay my accountant via a standing order. I don't get like ad hoc bills or time-costed stuff coming in. I just pay him a standing order and have done since 2008. Do you guys settle with your accountant on the same basis?
Yeah, I used to go cardless and pay every month and would never leave. I'm incredibly sticky.
You're the same, Alan?
Yep, same.
Yeah, okay, so they do. There was obviously a degree of recurring, but it's not quite as sticky, perhaps, as much.
Yeah, well, I guess. Look, I always make the point we're banking cash because if we have trail income coming in, it's like it's just cash going into the bank on a regular basis. Whereas this is a specific service that you're paying for. Whereas it is different when you're just getting a percentage from the client's investment. That's another day's work, Alan. I know, right, in terms of how fees are taken by financial advisory firms.
But the pro for accountancy firms, Carl, just to push back, they are focusing on businesses, and people are a little bit more loose when it's a business.
That's a really good point.
Versus a personal checkbook.
Yeah.
I've got no idea how much I'm paying my accountant. Obviously, if I looked at it one day, I'll sort of work it out, but. Does that make sense? They're focused on the business checkbook rather than the personal checkbook. I know ours is a bit messy, but
everything tastes a bit nicer when you can run it through the business, doesn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, 100%. But look, I suppose the point here is that traditionally the exit valuations are much lower, or have been much lower for for accountancy firms than say financial advisory firms, and. I know a lot of them are trying to consolidate, and people are kind of in for 3, 4, 5 years, and then they're looking for they'll get a lump of money now and then a kind of bigger lump down the line. So look, it's just interesting, and it's just seems to be the way things change, don't they? And models that have been there for decades and decades and decades. Well, you've got to be prepared for change and be flexible enough to go with that change, I guess.
Good stuff. Alan?
Yeah. I'm going to bring forward one of the comments I was going to make later on the list, which to sort of tie this stuff together, you're talking about private equity going into every sector and every industry. They look for verticals. They go in, they consolidate, put a bunch of companies together. Whether it's financial advisors, dentists, accountants, whatever, that's the model. I would say my overall view, and I've got limited experience, but I do understand there's lots of different types of private equity. Some are better than others, put it that way. But I want to just give a specific shout out to a young guy called Max Sullivan, I've been sort of in touch with on and off over the last year or so. And acknowledge him because Max has done a bit like Ollie in the earlier in the show that we mentioned. He has gone and he was working for a large company which was a part of a consolidated outfit that had been bought by private equity. He has left to set up his own firm called Archgate Wealth, got FCA sign off, and he's done it through the He's done it through the Valid Path network, not the Valley Path, which Andy's a member of.
I've always said Valid Path. I've known them for years. I don't think Valley Path.
And apparently they've been brilliant. So that's interesting. That's some good feedback. And I don't think any of us would. You know them? I don't know them, but anyway. So they seem to be a good firm for those who are setting up on their own, an early stage, and. Max, he's just got that. There's reasons why he could no longer work for this PE-backed organization. He's not.
What were they, Alan? What were they? List them in extensive detail.
Absolutely not. I don't even know. But his view is that his experience is that these firms are full of good people, but ultimately you always feel conflicted as you're kind of serving the PE, private equity owner, not necessarily your client. And I think that's the reality. That's what a lot of people are doing. And we're going to maybe talk a little bit later on about some of these things. And maybe it's a whole podcast or a meat and potatoes on this, because you get advisors who were working for a firm, serving their clients, they get acquired by someone else. And, the agendas change, that, your rules, how you get paid, your targets, your goals.
Nothing changes, but everything changes.
Nothing changes, but everything
changes. We're going to leave it as it is and then change everything.
Yeah, and I kind of there is this inherent conflict because private equity don't do this. They're not charities. They're doing it because they need to be profitable, and they do have relatively short term. By our standards, we're all long term business owners and investors. Private equity, by definition, is a 5 to 7 year model. They're building a fund. They're creating more revenue and profit, which they're going to package up and sell on again. That's how it works. Very few of them are sort of forever hold patient capital firms. So there is this underlying, and again, everyone's got their own experiences of it. It sounds like Max, he was not deadly against them. He just said, I felt a little bit conflicted because we've got the way the business operates. You feel that it's the ownership which comes number one, and your clients are number two and number three on the list. And it's just an interesting dynamic. Yeah. But regardless, well done. Good luck to you, Max. Great move. It's a brave move, but it's I think it's going to be the right one.
Do it early on.
Okay, let's spinning back then. So can we segue now, Carl, to your second point?
Yeah, and look, maybe bearing in mind what's just been said there, maybe this is a much more lengthy discussion that we should have, but Ireland is seeing consolidation now, and I suppose it's building up a head of steam, whereas I suppose you guys are well used to it at this stage, and there is some private equity in. I just shared an article there with Howden, who are not necessarily private equity in terms of they're buying up some firms here. Fairstone have been active in the market as well.
How did the insurance company, Carl?
Yeah. So they've bought
buying up IFA firms, wealth managers.
Yeah, 4 or 5 in Ireland.
Brokers, aren't they?
Yeah, they're brokers. Yeah. So they've bought up 4 or 5 this year. Fairstone in Ireland have probably bought similar this year as well. Mm-hmm. So and there are other players as well that just aren't coming to mind straight away. But look, I guess this maybe is a longer discussion, because I know from talking to some guys that I've met, Rob Stevenson would have very strong views on some of this, that some of the private equity experiences are really good, and then there's some are terrible, and then there's probably the ones in between. And it's going to be very interesting to see. Like, we were kind of sitting here in Ireland going, what's wrong with us? There's no consolidation happening here, and it is starting to happen for sure now. And look, best of luck to those firms who've taken, it seems that most of them are kind of sticking around for a little bit in terms of earnouts and that kind of stuff. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I think that, firms who are remaining independent will become, less and less and less. And maybe that's a bit of a USP. Who knows? But it's just very interesting times for sure. And I know in our IX group, there's a lot of chat about this kind of stuff. As to, there's a lot of players who are definitely interested in coming to Ireland, but haven't yet made their first purchase. So there will be more coming, and interesting times, yeah.
Just a bit of housekeeping, Nick. Can you mute your mic while you're typing? It's incredibly irritating for the listeners. My question to you, Carl.
Andy is in Spain, everybody. And Andy was up late last night with his kids.
Heavy breathing Andy, giving me tips.
No, I do have a question for Carl. Those 2 players you mentioned, Fairstone and Howden, I believe they've got a UK base. So they've obviously sort of got an Irish division that's swallowing up Irish-based, which would be the sort of European connection, I'm assuming. Are you going to say? Do you think you're going to see specific Irish banks, Irish insurance companies getting into that space and doing a bit of a roll-up and a bit of a consolidation, Carl?
Well,
without mentioning any names.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I know that sure. Look, we were part of that kind of proposal a few years back, and it didn't work out for various reasons. I don't see the Irish banks necessarily getting into it, but I know for sure, because I've been contacted, that there are other interested parties trying to come to Ireland and get involved. The problem with Ireland, the firms that say I think Howden and Fairstone are acquiring are, I won't say they're definitely not solos. There's some really good firms, I'd have to say, but they're not kind of, they're maybe 500 to $1 million turnover kind of firms. So there hasn't necessarily been, big deals done. And I don't want to be getting myself in trouble and making any firm sounding small, but it remains to be seen if that's their strategy. And I could see how that could be a really good strategy, because firms that don't have necessarily the marketing, don't have necessarily the compliance support, the back office support. If you provided all of that to them, well, and you had really good advisors, well, could that be a really good model? I think it is. And it was something that I was thinking about doing a few years back, and that's what we were trying to do. But it ain't easy, and jamming a whole bunch of firms together, that comes with challenges for absolute sure, and it can be difficult. Culture is a massive piece.
Culture is a massive piece. Okay.
Yeah, and getting look, let's call a spade a spade. We're all business owners, and we all think we know everything about everything. And getting all those Type A personalities into one room.
Yeah, we can't do anything, and we don't even have a serious business
we're
together.
the perfect example. We should.
I hate all of you.
Yeah. Well, the feeling is very mutual.
Yeah, good.
So
I got it in first. Okay, let's try and tighten this up and move it along, move the slate along. Okay,
Yeah.
I've got a quick point, but I'm going to just hammer this home because it's worth bearing in mind that we're all integrating AI in some fashion or another, in some way or another. We're leading on it more and more every day. And I just written a hat tip essay. I ran the copy through Gemini, which is Google's AI, just to make sure the figures were okay, because I was doing pension stuff, and I'm technically I'm as deep as a puddle. And Gemini AI was adamant that employer national insurance in the UK comes in at 13.8%, which is wrong. It's 15% on pretty much everything over £5,000. And given that's purely a data mine, it's not subjective, it's in the tax code, it got it wrong. And in the forum that I run, that I might have mentioned, tiny.cc/IFA forum, there's a horrible question about trusts and nil rate bans and potentially exempt transfers, the kind of stuff that makes you want to go and just jump off a cliff. And there's a debate going back and forth between all these techie IFA experts who know their stuff, half the people saying one thing, half the people saying another thing, because the tax codes are out of control. And then one of the guys in the forum, Aaron Gunningham, friend of the show, ran the question through 4 different AI models. 2 came back and said, no, the PET does not reduce the nil rate band. The other 2 models said, yes, it does. So lean on AI, but just be aware that it's still, it's not the bee's knees when it comes to facts. And that's where I think it should be strongest, because that's just a pure data mine of information that's out there in the public domain. So there you go.
I think until recently, ChatGPT didn't have the correct capital gains tax. So it's littered with problems everywhere. But advisors know that they're not going to absolutely rely on it. They're just going to use it as a guide.
Yeah.
Cool.
The latest Grok is now the leading AI. Be interesting
apparently
to run it through.
According to Elon.
Oh, there's a surprise.
No, it is. There's a whole lot of tests.
Yeah, the metric for coding, it appears to be just way above anything. And not that we don't do it. Okay, so let's Ultra Metro Bank.
Oh yeah, this is I think somewhat interesting. So
this
there's
is
a new
somewhat
bank
interesting.
launched.
Sit down.
We'll be the
Somewhat
judge of that.
interesting. Buckle up. So there's a new bank being launched. It's called Family Offices Bank. FOB, I think they're calling it, FOB. It's trying to target, they're calling it ultra high net worth individuals with family offices with at least $30 million or family offices with $100 million. They want to attract 2,000 of the world's richest families and clients. The bank's going to be domiciled in Jersey, again, for various reasons. Anthony Thompson is the main person behind this, who's launched 2 banks previously, Metro Bank that came out guns blazing, but then had a bit of a fall from grace. Atom Bank, I believe, is a bit more successful. So this is the whole private bank space that we are all quite familiar with, have a lot of clients that have accounts with them and various other things. And every different private bank's got its own, focus. So if this bank is purely trying to just do, cash management services and not always rely on the more highly profitable area of the investment space and just charge correctly and accordingly for these bank accounts, I think they'll be very successful. I had a call recently with another private bank. I was looking to move them because I was just fed up with the main high street banks that always just asking me for insane amounts of information for completely pointless things. And I just want to find a bank that just charges me a monthly fee, but none of them do. They say, no, we'll give you a free account if you hit this criteria. What's the criteria? Okay, you need to have this much cash with us. How much does the cash pay? 1%. Okay, so me parking a load of money with you, you're inadvertently charging me 3% of all the money that's with you. So that's how you earn your fee. I just want them to charge me a fixed monthly cost. Anyway, so this sort of banking services, I think, is a bit of a gap.
If you can move around very quietly, Andrew, or mute your mic when you move around, thanks.
Sorry, mate. Sorry. So it's this new bank that's going to be launched. They're going to try and target ultra wealthy families, according to them. So they're going to try and take clients away from the handful of private banks that we all know well. So yeah, that's that. Alan, did you come across this?
I saw the article.
Have they contacted you to set up a new account with them?
No, I'm not their target.
I just conscious of time,
audience.
guys, and we'll file that last one under somewhat
Okay.
interesting. Moving on now to Smithy. Billions pulled from pensions.
Well, look, just coming back to the ongoing theme of governments not knowing what they're doing and not recognising second-order effects. This was a recent article which said since the Rachel Reeves announcement that inheritance tax will be applied to pension funds, there has been 5 billion withdrawn from existing pensions. People are just starting accessing their funds, taking it out, giving it away, which is entirely expected, I suppose. Interestingly, this hasn't even come in yet. Obviously, it's not due till 2027.
Yeah.
So we're still 2 years away, but people are already just diving into their pension funds. And the other thing that was kind of when I think under the radar at the time when this was all announced was, we can kind of understand when crystallized pensions, unused, but the funds which have been crystallized, so people are actually kind of in retirement at the time, and they now fall into the scope, or potentially will do in 2027. But also any fund which is completely uncrystallized, and someone who's 40 years old, miles away from retirement, that is now subject to inheritance tax. So God forbid you get a dreaded disease and die early, or you're in a very unfortunate accident, and at that sort of pre-retirement age, you're likely to have a family, you're likely to have children. You may not be married to your other half. You may be divorced or single.
Yeah,
or
good point, yeah.
Never. And a lot of people increasingly, don't get married, but they are together as a couple. So all of a sudden, sorry to hear about dad passing away. Here's a tax bill. That just seems very egregious. Just seems very additionally.
Wankers.
And if mum or dad are a business owner, private business owner, again, it's all in the mix. Private businesses and pensions, all in the mix. People prior to this were in an okay position. Yeah, it's harsh.
So
we'll see the fallout.
Impacts are, so people are withdrawing money from pensions. And there's bottom line, there's an underlying distrust. There's an underlying distrust of the government anyway. And now the average punter says, look, I'll just forget about pensions. I'm not interested because I don't trust what this government, any future government may do to pensions. So therefore, your aspirations, your ability to save and invest. And I suppose it is at some stage impacting financial advisors. If your clients are saying, I hear that they can be tax efficient, but I don't like them. Oh, and by the way, if I am of a certain age, I want to just pull out as much as I legally can from it.
Well, that's
going to impact advisors. I'm hearing of advisors. If you charge a percentage of assets,
for the next 10 years.
This is front and centre all the time, and it's really it's one. We all like black and white things, right? We like to be categorical, and this is so grey. The money being pulled out now from pensions, I hope, is by people in their sort of 90s and so forth, who basically don't know if they're going to be around in 2027 anyway. But they might be because younger. If you're in your 60s, do you want to be stripping money now? Because it's only 2 years away. The chances of you dying are remote, and things will maybe change in 4 or 5 years' time with the change of government. So it's really on a case-by-case basis as to what's the best way out now. And Rachel Reeves is probably thinking, maybe they knew this consequence, and they'd rather have 20% income tax in the hand on a lot of these withdrawals than 40% IHT down the line, because they can fund today's grasping hand. I don't know.
You boys still using the old-fashioned percentage of assets fee model. You must be getting hammered now. You must be really losing revenue.
No, I've gone to a new model. I've gone to it's called reverse value asset pricing, where I work out a flat fee, times it by 12, and then work it out to be around 1%. It's something that someone in London did, but the other way round. Yeah. So no,
it's very, very prevalent in the Chancery Lane area.
Right, come on. We're last thing on the slate. Storyteller, you got 30 seconds.
No, I need a little bit more than that, and I need to just find my notes.
Class.
Look,
25
this
seconds.
was just a follow up to a conversation I think we had on the last episode, which was to do with the SJP practice buyout loan model. Remember that? And we talked about
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
right. I
15
happen
seconds.
to know. We just want to clarify something because I happen to know an ex-SJP partner who shall remain anonymous. Really good guy. Him and his business. They have left St. James's Place and they've set up an independent business. And he just wanted to clarify something. He said, "I was just sent me a message listening to the last episode of Trap." Andy was talking about SJP and personal guarantees. But Andy said they don't ask for personal guarantees. This
It
chap
obviously
said,
depends. It's a complex area, but yes.
so he says they do make a personal guarantee on the loan. And we've known quite a few instances last year where they've terminated a business owner, taken their business away from them, handed out their clients, then tried to recall the loan in 30 days. There's no way on earth I'd take a loan from SJP knowing what we know, and advisors need to be aware of it as we don't want them to be in the same situation as others have been. Now, I'm saying that from a neutral standpoint. That's just that's the opinion.
That was the opinion of Alan Smith, not the opinion of the Real Advisor podcast.
It's the opinion of somebody who was a partner or a part of their organization, and he's just really flagging it up. And of course, do your own research. If you're going to take a loan, whether it's SJP or anyone else, understand the mechanics, understand all the aspects of it, because debt can be crushing. And if you haven't understood all the rules and regulations, if you've got a personal guarantee and things go against you and the interest rates go up and the revenue of the business goes down, and you've got a personal guarantee that threatens your family home, that's an issue, right? So I'm making no other comment on that other than he wanted me to share that with the audience so that people go into it with their eyes wide open. End of story.
Ultra.
Sure. I think we should get someone on the show that knows this space very well. Obviously, we know Matt at Virtus, so Valid Path are getting involved. In providing funding for their advisors. St. James's Place has been doing it for years, and I know lots of people that have done it successfully. There was also another post that came on LinkedIn recently, also quite negative about the SJP partner loan system that me and Carl picked up on, and they were saying how terrible it is that they're charging base plus 3.5. Base plus 3.5 in a business world is almost free money in this space. I've heard base plus 12 from other funders. So yeah, devil is in the detail. And obviously SJP are a huge organisation. So there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of these loans, hundreds, if not thousands of these individuals. Some are fantastic individuals, great business people, very aggressive. And others are not so great business people and are going to be a failed financial advisor. So there's going to be good stories, bad stories, but I think it would be great to get someone who knows this space really well. As I say, hopefully we can find someone that knows the inside out, nuts and bolts. I know Rob Stevenson does, but maybe someone else that knows specifically about funding for growth, IFA firms, specifically around debt finance. I think it would be great to get them on the show. So if anyone's listening that thinks they fit that bill, email Alan as usual. We'll give you a 30-second Zoom call. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we've done the topical tidbits on the slate. Good stuff. And we're at 48 minutes. But I can see someone is at the front door and it's not Posty. So I'm going to let this somebody in because that can only mean that we're getting on towards the meat and potatoes.
There's somebody at the door. Oh, there's somebody at the door. Come on, there's somebody at the door. Oh, there's somebody at.
So we're welcoming in
I'm at the door, guys.
At the door, you've come in, Joe. You're waiting at the door a long time. Nice to see you. Welcoming a guest from the Emerald Isle. Carl, would you like to give your fellow countrymen a brief intro?
Indeed, I would love to introduce to everybody Joe O'Connor. So we thought, being the summer months, we'd do something maybe a little bit different. And we said, why don't we get someone who could talk to us about looking after ourselves? Because after all, our audience, our listeners, are all business owners who are, really, really busy and trying to develop their business. And that's what we focus on all of the time. So maybe there's an element outside your business that maybe you're not looking after yourself as well as you should be. Now, because we're evidence-based investors, we're clearly not going to get on the next best thing or some quack who doesn't know what he's doing. So my friend Joe O'Connor is joining us today. Joe has lectured in the Munster Technology University in the areas of exercise physiology and performance nutrition. Parallel to his academic role, Joe has worked at the European, the world and Olympic level in athletics, equestrian and golf, while also, the Irish listeners, working with All Ireland winning hurling teams of Clare and Limerick. Shall I go on? Joe is an entrepreneur. He's built and sold Nices, and he formed Coach Pact in 2015. I'm a client of Coach Pact. I am the one person that he doesn't tell anybody that I am the client, because I am the poorest example. He is, but he's done. Joe genuinely has done great things for me over the years, over a long period of time, to be fair, and got me when I was not in a good place mentally or physically, and got me into reasonable shape. But he does keep reminding me that we have to get back on that old treadmill again, Carl, please. For that. But Joe still participates and competes in triathlons and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, enough about that, Joe, because we wouldn't get to ask you any questions if I kept going on with your intro. So you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks very much. And thanks, lads, as well, for inviting me onto the podcast. I'm excited to chat to you today.
So, Joe, I'll just start with a really easy one, right? Because you're familiar with what we do as financial planners. So can you just tell me, as an expert and as a PhD student in exercise nutrition and all of that, what are the parallels you would draw from what, say, we do and what you do?
Yeah, Carl, look, there are so many parallels, but there's two in particular that come to mind. And when I'm thinking financial planning, I'm thinking words around compounding and cumulative. And your health and wellness is similar. It compounds over time. It is cumulative also. Unfortunately, chronic disease is also compounds over time, and it's also cumulative. And I think if there's a phrase I hear an awful lot from you guys, it's time in the market rather than timing the market. The same applies to us. You know, it's a little often. And if I was to take my spin on that phrase, I would say our consistency should be our intensity when it comes to our health and our wellness and our performance. And sometimes we're sold, the dream of quick fixes and fads. And the reality of it is a little often makes a huge difference when it comes to your health and your wellness, as it does with your financial well-being. So I'd put your personal well-being and your financial well-being, as far as terminology goes, as far as philosophies go, not that different at all. Another thing we share as well, though, Carl, are our friends, our gurus and our social media influencers who will sell you the dream. And I see this in the financial planning world as I do in the health and the fitness. With good financial planning, and tell me if I'm wrong, guys, you're the experts here, is kind of boring and predictable. It's showing up and hitting that consistency.
Yeah,
high performance health, high performance well-being is also the case. It's a little often your consistency is more important than going at anything at any intense point. And I think that's very, very important. And there's one element that came out in the late 90s, the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if you guys heard of this, that, some people with a little bit of information, their confidence is through the roof. But the longer we spend in industry and the longer we do this, it's not that we lack confidence. We just know that it's not straightforward and it's not as predictable as that little bit of information we have. So I think they're the two parallels, Carl, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I love the phrase, it's so important. And I'm failing with this one at the moment because it's the summer, Joe, so I'm giving myself a bit of a break. But the consistency is the intensity, as opposed to going to the gym and going, right, I'm going to absolutely smash that session. And I'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks' time. It's like you're much better off revving it back, but doing it much more often, I guess. Yeah.
I think you're being a little bit hard on yourself, Carl, because we spoke before about heart rate variability and resting heart rate. And they're things that we can just keep an eye on, a little bit consistency. And, you all have busy lives. We have to get that balance right. And I think looking back at some of the core cornerstones of our overall health are important as well. It ebbs and flows, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I'm suffering with a bad back at the moment, but one thing that you were encouraging me to do was, okay, set a goal that you can actually do. So I'm on day 80 of 10,000 steps at the moment. Most of those days, right, it's a little bit like life and it's a little bit like business. Most of those days are pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's actually fine. But by Christ, there's been some days where it's like, oh my God, I have to go out at 11 o'clock at night and try and get the last couple of thousand steps in. But again, it's I suppose, setting those goals that are realistic and attainable.
Yeah.
You know, setting too high goals. And I used to always do that, set very high goals in terms of this whole area and then not achieving them. And then you're just going, I'll just pack it all in, as opposed to keeping the consistency going.
Yeah, and I think social media at times plays a factor in this, that you see people on, and I'm only really on LinkedIn, to be honest, and you see these kind of people doing extraordinary things, and how much of it is real and how much of it is actually attainable for the average person.
Bullshit.
You know?
Yeah.
So thanks, Nick. I hope that wasn't directed at me. But it's you know, and without going down any grey areas or anything, there's a lot of performance coaches in my field now that, you know, if you don't have your 4:30 gratitude session and you have to do this and you have to do that, you know, a lot of this, I think, is, but have you ever owned and run a business and see where reality fits in with all this? And I don't think they're very parallel, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, look, we have a man here who's in peak physical fitness in Mr. Andrew Hart, and he likes his little quacks and that kind of stuff. And we've spoken on this show before about mouth taping. So, just for example, mouth taping, is that a thing? Is he right or is he wrong?
Well, I can guarantee you that it is a thing.
Yeah.
Right and wrong is a little bit more of a conversation we should delve deeper into.
It's the correct answer, Joe.
Yeah. You know, look, it's and you tell me you've got good responses from it. You felt good and so on. There was a paper published this year, a systematic review looking back over nearly 25 years worth of research in this area,
Oh my God.
it's inconclusive. It's
You built me up.
You know, I'll just give you the title because I kind of printed it off.
Mouth taping.
Breaking social media fads and uncovering the safety and efficacy of mouth taping in patients with mouth breathing, sleep disorder breathing, and obstructive sleep apnea. A systematic review.
Joe, send that to me in an email, and I'll put it in the so-called show notes because there'll be a high demand to read that paper.
Yeah. It's in summary, some people get great benefits. In reality, what I would say is, if I was to stand on a podcast and say, does it work or not? I would say there isn't a lot of evidence that says it works from a scientific perspective. There is evidence that it can be dangerous for people with restricted breathing. I would advise that it's delivered through medical advice, but I know loads of people who do it and find it helps with sleep and it helps with relaxation and it helps with mindfulness. So I would, as the scientist in me, would read the systematic review and then ask my doctor.
It might help with my marriage, Joe, as last night the lovely Penelope went to the spare room because my snoring was so loud. So,
and
little things.
I've dabbled in a lot of things, but marriage counselling is not going to be one.
Yeah. But look, I guess the thing, like, so say the 4 a.m. club or 5 a.m. club, whatever it was, and I know Alan was trying to do a bit of that at one stage. Like, for me, that just would not work. Right? It just would not work because I know I need my sleep and I just can't function if I don't do it. But a little bit like the mouth taping, regardless of whether there are papers saying that this stuff works or not, find what works for you. And if it works for you and you're feeling better, you know, in every aspect of your life, well, then I guess keep doing it, yeah?
100%. And, you know, there is a very good book there, the 5 a.m. Club, which encourages a lot of these activities. And I'd be in, like, we've got morning and evening people. We've got arcs and owls or larks and owls. But I would say if you are getting up very early, you got to double it back at the other side of the night. You know, the 7 to 9 hours sleep is non-negotiable. But if you enjoy getting up early and you have your rituals and your routines and it works for you, as long as you're hitting 7 to 9 hours, I'd be 100% behind it. If you're more of a later person in the afternoon, I would say get your 7 to 9 hours sleep and do what works for you.
Yeah.
I might buy that.
Yeah,
on
that subject and finding out what works for you, I'm forever telling these guys the importance of being a corporate athlete, right? But you know,
we always do what I just did there. We always laugh.
But we have had that. But here's the thing: I'm interested in your take, Joe, because one thing that I've found works for me. Now, I'm just coming on the back end of about 4 to 5 weeks of how can I call it easy living, like obviously eating and drinking a bit too much. But I've always been quite comfortable because my way I've done do this every year in the summer, but I reset. I have a reset, so I do a fast. I do a long fast. So longest I've done so far is 60 hours. I've done a 60-hour fast, and I want to do a 72-hour fast. So I'm not going to eat for 3 days. It's be a water only fast because I've found for me, it's not for everyone. It works. It really resets me and gets me sort of back in the zone type thing. So I'm not craving whatever sugar or unhealthy foods. What's the research? What's your own experience, if you have got experience, Joe, on intermittent fasting?
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. Look, intermittent fasting has been around for centuries. And, I suppose what some people have done is they've taken elements that they like and apply it. I would say that if you are going into fasting, you should go fully into it and look at what the science says. Dr. Peter Attia, whose book came out last year, Outlive, and has done numerous different projects on this, is a big advocate of fasting. And, it varies from, like, when fasting became popular again, it was like the 5-2, where you would fast for 2 days, where you might only have, 400 or 500 calories for breakfast, but it was kind of sold as eat whatever you want for the next 5 days, which would be totally contrary to what popular health belief would be. And then the 16-8 came popular, where you would only eat within an 8-hour window and you would fast for 16 hours. And then extended fasts over 24, 48, 72 hours and variations. A lot of how your body will adapt and respond to intermittent fasting of various types is very much dependent on your genetics, but also the existing health and lifestyle habits you're bringing into that as well. For some people, respond really, really well from a cognitive perspective. They find they have much greater clarity. For people who may be suffering from inflammation, fasting can help, but we got to be careful there, Andy, as well, because the fasting is helping because you're stopped doing the things that are making you inflamed. So you might be eating a high inflammatory diet, foods and habits and routines that lead to inflammation. So is it the fasting is working, or have you stopped doing the thing that's making you worse? And it kind of goes back to what we were saying to Andy about the mouth taping. If it works for you, there's reason to it. There's 7 key guiding principles of training that when you come in to study exercise science, that's probably one of the first lectures you'll get. One of those is the principle of individualization, that everyone is an individual. Another is a principle of adaptability, that everyone adapts differently. So individuals adapt differently. And a third one is specificity. As an individual, you'll adapt differently in a specific environment. So there are many, many variables here. And probably one of the most frustrating answers anyone in any genre can give is it depends. And it kind of goes back to my Dunning-Kruger. The longer you're in this game, the more it depends, because there are many factors to it. So from a health perspective, reduced inflammation. From a cognitive perspective, greater clarity, greater focus. And many other secondary benefits to it as well.
Can I just jump in there, Joe? Because Alan, you've always said that your brain you feel much sharper. Isn't that one of the key benefits for you?
Yeah, very much so. As Joe was saying, it's a cognitive benefit. So I'm talking about, there's 2 things here. One is an extended fast, let's call it 72 hours. And then the other one, the one that I try to stick to is just a restricted eating window. And I try to do what's called OMAD, 1 meal a day. So you just have one meal. That's sort of, and see, for me as well, because, and this just ties into, running a business, and we're busy. If it's just so it simplifies, it's, one decision removes 1,000 decisions. I don't think, what am I going to have for breakfast? Where should I go for lunch? Should I go and get a drink somewhere? So I'm just eating once a day. So and it took a little bit of time to get into that, but it's now part of a routine, a ritual. Now I've dropped it for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Obviously, I'm eating about 10 times a day, but I know, but I've always felt comfortable. I can reset. That's the point. I'm not down this path. I'll have a bit of fun. I'll reset. And you're right, Carl. It is. I feel sharp, and I do wake up much earlier in the morning. As a result, I'm sort of leaping out of bed with a degree of energy and mental clarity And again, I've spoke to other people who say, "Oh, I couldn't go out my 3 meals a day type thing. That's how I operate." Fine, may not be for them. They might not need to find something else. So for me, both health, fitness, I lose weight, and I feel mentally sharper. So it works for me, and I'm restarting it.
Just before we go to Ultra, I've been on your 1 meal a day things. They start at 12 p.m. and end about 8 p.m. Ultra.
Yeah, that's a long lunch, Nick.
A couple of brief sayings. So I believe the best diet is the one that you stick to. I mean, Alan's just rambling on then about the 15 different diets he's had in the last 15 months. So the best diet is the one that you stick to.
Just one, Andrew, just one. Pay attention, just one.
Okay. The best exercise regime is the one that you stick to. So many people come out with fatty diets, fatty exercise regimes. It's like, don't go. You've not been to the gym once, and now you're going to tell me you're going to go to the gym 20 times this month. No, just start at 2 times a week. Like, the best exercise regime is the one that you can stick to. Sorry, Joe, my specific question to you, my friend, is what's your thoughts on calisthenics?
Almost to an extension of what you've just said, Ultra, or Andy. I'm getting caught up with the nicknames here.
Come on board, Joe. Come on board.
Calisthenics are fantastic. It's functional movement, and it's the kind of movement patterns that our bodies are built to do, if you're in good enough shape to do it. And if you're not in good enough shape to do it, come in at a level that you can do it. Exactly as you were saying to Alan about the nutrition, that the same principle applies here. Talking about Dr. Peter Athia earlier, he's got a centenarian decathlon. Okay, and I spoke to Carol about this before with Metas, and it's a great concept, and it feeds into the calisthenics, Andy, because these are 10 things we should be able to do in our 90s. Okay, and a lot of it is simple, basic movements. So one of them would be: are you now or in your 90s able to get up off the floor with one hand? Can you do that? Can you climb 4 flights of stairs with 2 bags of shopping within 4 minutes? Little things like that. And there's a few good ones in there as well. In your 90s, can you still have sex? So whether that's calisthenics or not, we'll have to debate. But my point being is having that functional independence is very, very important. And Andy, what I would say is calisthenics is probably one of the most fundamental movement patterns that we can have. Because if you look at Bruce Lee, never lifted a weight in his life, but was in fantastic shape.
Yeah.
So
absolutely ripped,
he died at 38, Joe. It might not be the best example.
Well, for his movement patterns, it was quite good. But if you're motivated to do it, if you can come in at a level that is suitable to your current position, and as you say yourself, can you do it consistently? There's so much research out there of the importance of resistance training. Yes, everyone should do resistance training, but people say no because I don't like the gym. Calisthenics is a form of resistance training. I was in the surf last night with my kids, just walking against the waves. That's resistance training. So absolutely. Yeah. It's what works for you.
Yeah. On that note, I'm not a big PE kind of guy, Joe. But I am doing little bits of stuff just to try. As you get older, it gets harder and harder. Really. So I've got a pair of dumbbells that are always in sight. Mm-hmm. So they're not stuck away in some gym remote. Well, no, Andrew, we listen to your prattle. You can listen to mine. So they're always in sight. They're not in some remote room that I've designated the gym that I'll never open the door to. They're actually in my office. And if I've just got an idle moment, I'll just quickly. It's just having less friction, isn't it? Less path to doing the thing. Even if they're just small incremental things, make it as easy as possible for yourself to do them, rather than, as Andy said, set yourself a goal of 20 gym visits in a month, which you're never going to do.
And you've not been to, you're not even started the ballet gym yet.
Yeah, and 100%. And I know I'm repeating myself. It's whatever you can do on a consistent basis. Like if you look at what the World Health Organization says, we should be doing about 150 minutes of low intensity physical activity a week. And we should do some form of resistance training twice a week. If that means just picking up those dumbbells, Nick, and just doing a quick push, pull and press, you are doing resistance training. The biggest limiter to our health and our fitness is inactivity. Some activity is definitely worth doing. I find most people don't do enough because they feel they can't do an hour or they can't do an hour and a half, or they look at the guy down the road that's doing a marathon and they're going, I'm sure I can't do that, so I'll do nothing. Whatever you can do on a consistent basis is so important. And for me, the big seller on this, and my research is pretty much looking at all these health and fitness, nutrition, lifestyle habits, how they can improve your cognitive performance. But if I could give you two big sells on this, okay, I was talking about the future, same as we do with financial planning, okay? And I love that JFK phrase that the time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. So for most people, the sun is shining now. But if we want to protect our future health, our future well-being, a little often is the key. Because quite quickly in life, in your 30s, okay, your balance, your movement, your muscular endurance start declining, quickly followed by strength, power, okay, and your aerobic capacity. They start declining. Now is the time to stop the decline. You wouldn't say to an investor or someone who's coming to you for a financial plan, right, when you hit 65, we'd want to start thinking about your retirement. You'd start thinking about it now. I'm saying the exact same thing with health and fitness and nutrition and lifestyle. And we're always looking with this oscillation between stress and rest. And Alan, you hit the nail on the head. You're quite regimental when you're on, but when you were off, you're off. And that research isn't new, despite what our social media influencers say. Some of that first research came out in 1908, and it's been evolving ever since.
Ultra.
Just a quick question, Joe, on running. What's the data around running, mainly road running, pavement running? What's your knowledge on that?
Yeah, well, I was a scholarship runner, so it got me my education. A lot of the time, and tell me if I'm wrong, Andy, sometimes when people ask that question, it's almost leading, is it bad for your knees or is it bad for your hips? Okay.
Yeah, well, that sort of jazz, yeah.
Yes, if you have a precondition that would have, osteoarthritis or arthritis or degeneration through different sports over the years, yes, it's not the best thing because it's quite impact laden. But for me, most people that start out running, okay, they run too far, too fast, too soon. So it's okay. Actually, most of the science, some of the elite athletes I work with, people are often surprised at how slow they run when they run slow, but then they're surprised at how fast they run when they run fast. It's very polarized. So I find running gets a bad name because people who are not structurally prepared to do it come in too fast, they go too far, too fast, too soon. I actually took a guy to Rome for a half marathon one time. He's a Widger guy, okay?
I don't want to hear it. I've heard enough about that.
Yeah, so. And he did great. He was pipped on the line, would you believe it? A diving finish. But the mantra, Carol, if you remember in our preparations, let's do what you can today so that we can build for tomorrow. So, Andy, running is very, very good for you. It's very, very healthy as long as you don't go too aggressively at it. And pointing at your headspace is phenomenal. I would say back off with the seriousness with the running. With so many wearables nowadays, people are obsessed with all the different metrics. Sometimes just getting out and running in the forest or on the beach or by the lake or wherever you are is just for the head as it is for the body.
So come on then, Joe. Let's hear your 10K time, my friend.
I'm okay. I'm tipping along. Back in the good days, I used to do it be around 32 minutes, 31, 32.
Wow, 10K?
Yeah. And I was well down the field at that. So
that's a bad time, is it?
Yeah. Well, now in my mid-40s, I'm nowhere near that anymore, unfortunately.
Headspace. I do a lot of walking, Joe, which is low. The lowest of low intensity stuff. But I do it, and I think Carl is definitely the same with sympathetic on this. That you do. I'm not doing it to get the heart rate going. I try and walk at a brisk pace. I just do it because I feel whether I walk if I'm down, I walk if I'm up. Yeah. I just get out and walk, and I always feel better for doing it. And I'm talking about like a 45-minute walk, at least, but just I think that's because it's not necessarily a macho exercise. It's kind of overlooked, and not an exercise, a pursuit, whatever you want to call it. But to me, I find it incredibly valuable. Yeah,
no, 100%, Nick, and it's one of those things that we are designed to do. If you just look at the skeleton, the human skeleton, it is designed to move. Like we were nomads. That's how we evolved. We're on the move. We're always chasing the seasons. Our body is designed really well to be up and walking and be active. It's not designed very well to be sitting down all day. I'm at a stand-up desk here. And almost, Nick, you almost led it as in, you almost apologize going, this isn't the best thing. It's a fantastic thing to do. And the consistency is very rewarding. Physiological benefits, that low-intensity aerobic activity is really good for your blood circulation and for your health. The cognitive benefits, and that's where my research is looking. How can we do things to make the brain work better? Whether that's clarity, focus, executive functioning, processing speed, all these things. Walking is one of the best things you can do for that, because you're going at a lower intensity, that you're increasing your heart rate just enough to increase the oxygen supply around the body, but most importantly to the brain. And we've often seen those, what we call fMRI scans, or an MRI scan of the brain. And you can see the way the parts of the brain light up after 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 45 minutes of walking as you do. Now, for some people, that's where we dump out stuff, and for other people, it creates stuff, but it depends how much has to be dumped out. Okay. And this research isn't new either. This, like a lot of you might have heard of in the zone or being in a state of flow. My high cheek sent me high. Cheek sent me high. It was a Hungarian-American psychologist that back in the 70s really looked at this area of how do I become more creative. He's most known for creativity, which I want to come back to in a sec. But one of the best things, he studied some of the most creative people on the planet. Okay. And they had three things in common. They were exceptionally good at immersion. They could immerse themselves in a project or a task really, really deep, so much so that they couldn't hear the phone ringing. Secondly, they were really good at incubation, that they could go away from something and stop it. Let's use your example, Nick, of going for a walk. That offloads a lot of stuff. But then the third thing that came was their eureka, or their aha, or their genius came. But the genius moment only came because they switched off, because they switched on. So for a lot of my clients that I work with in Coach Pact, they use, like, they might be training for whatever, you name it. They could be training for it. Like I have one client at the moment training for Kilimanjaro. So basically, when they go prepare for that, it's their switch off, it's walking. But when they come back, they have a lot more clarity. And Carol, we spoke before about the whole AI space, and is AI going to replace us? AI is far better than any human at machine learning. So for the machine learning tasks, yes. But where I think we have the 3 C's, we can step out from the crowd. This links back to what you're saying, Nick. I think curiosity, okay, which is a psychological trait, and that varies from person to person, okay? So that's variable. But clarity and creativity are 2 things that are directly related to my research. Like if you don't have enough sleep, you won't have clarity. You won't have creativity. If you don't eat properly, if you don't stay hydrated, and as you just said, Nick, if you don't get out and get some fresh air in, you won't have those abilities. So for me, in the conversation with AI, is AI going to replace us? Well, it's going to replace a lot of things, but it can't replace a person's curiosity, creativity, or clarity. Poor lifestyle habits can inhibit all those 3.
Okay, great stuff. That's good, because all my life I've been told I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Ultra, your hand is raised.
Oh, no, it's not. Sorry, I didn't lower it, Nick. Bad behaviour.
Okay, fine. I'm just conscious of time here. We're like, what are we, nearly 80 minutes in. Carl, Joe, what do you think? Should we continue, or should we?
Can I just ask one question? Because I spoke to Joe about this. So Joe works with world class athletes, and I guess our goal is to be world class business owners, to manage world class firms, right? And it doesn't matter how big or small that might be, but if we have that as a goal. So Joe, what lessons or learnings could we bring in to our daily habits that you've learned from world-class athletes?
Yeah, sure, Carl. I suppose the term I would use a lot of the time, and my research is based around the corporate athlete. And to be a corporate athlete, you don't necessarily need to be fit and healthy, etc. You need to be someone who is time poor, working very hard, have a lot of demands, need to make a lot of decisions. Business owners, business leaders. So the parallels, and one of the main parallels I find with elite sports people is planning, you know? As Muhammad Ali said, like, you know, that he never won a fight in the ring, it was always in the preparation. And what I find is if you look at an elite sports person or an elite sports team, 2 things, that they'll deal with the problem that's right in front of them right now, firstly. But secondly, they'll almost project their year out. They'll have a pre-season, they'll have a pre-competitive season, they'll have a competitive season, a peak season, a transition season. Now, I a lot of think, like Alan, you made the point earlier that you were busy and now you've been off for the month of August. I saw your automatic email reply. I loved it. You know, I won't be around. I'm gone. And you celebrate that. I think that's sometimes the difference between a corporate athlete and an athlete. The athlete will plan and prepare and know that there's going to be periods of time where everything is crazy. I'm totally, like if you look at an athlete preparing for the Olympics, anxiety's through the roof, stress is through the roof, pressure's through the roof. They have coping mechanisms, but they've planned for that and they've trained for it. Most importantly, is they plan an off season or a down season or a deload week. Like I'm working with athletes and they train hard for 3 to 4 weeks and then plan a deload week. Whereas the difference between a corporate athlete and an athlete will train more than they compete. A corporate athlete competes more than they train. Like every day is game day in the business world, or most days are game day. So do we have habits? Do we have routines? Do we have coping mechanisms to deal with the pressures that come? You need to be disciplined and you need to be strong on that. I'm biased, but I have a bit of evidence behind it as well that exercise is very, very important. No matter how little, it's the consistency is important. Do the things that work for you. Nutrition. You know, a lot of the time we might lean towards the Mediterranean diet or look at the DASH diet, which is for hypertension. These are two of the big diets. There's a MIND diet, which mixes the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. Real food, sourced locally, cooked properly is usually what I say to people. But what is the coping strategy? Don't keep going till you crash and burn and have to stop. Plan to stop would be my short answer on that card.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Brilliant.
Great stuff. Joe, really, really enjoyed your contribution to episode 77 of the Real Advisor podcast. In typical Trap fashion, I can't remember whether we agreed if you wanted to hang around for the remainder of the show. It's about another 15 minutes. You can bugger off. I'll put a link to your brand in the so-called show notes. It's entirely up to you, my friend.
No, I would love to, Nick, if that's okay with you guys. Yeah.
That's no problem. Because we have to move on to the next section of the show because I can see the post lady's at my front door. She's hauling up the bulging sack of TRAPist questions. If you, dear TRAPist, want to leave a question, please do so via the pinned tweet on X, the pinned X on tweet, whatever you want to call it. Also, there's a link in the so-called show notes to leave your questions. We do get through them. This question was from Gavin M. It came in January. I'm not going to open it up because I've opened the letter up earlier. Gavin M., whose social handle is @JoeRogan. Nice try. Gavin M says, love the podcast, guys. My question is, do you guys do any outbound marketing now? And what would you suggest for people starting up to get in front of people? How did you start your businesses? Wow. I mean, there's about 15 meat and potatoes in there. We've covered this in different iterations throughout the previous 76 episodes of Trap. Just quickly, whoever wants to go with this first, and Joe, more than happy to have your input as well on how you market. Do you do outbound marketing? How do you start your business? But anyone got any quick, pithy thoughts for Joe Rogan trading as Gavin?
Very briefly. I think it sounds like he's very early on in his business career. So it's not saying I've got 500 client names on, emails on an email list. I now need to sort of nurture them in a good way. So I'm saying old school, get out there, do business networking, join something like BNI. Which is not great, but it's a good start very early on in your career. You need to get out and see people, talk to people. I'd also probably throw in there as well, set up a podcast. So he needs to have a brand that's called something that's ideally the name of his business and also somewhat the name of the podcast. So I'm saying old school business networking and podcast.
Storyteller.
There's quick wins and there's long lead-in time ones. So this kind of networking type thing, you're not going to necessarily get a client next week as a result of that. You might get lucky, but you need to do that anyway because you're building your pipeline for next year and the year after by building relationships with professional advisors, with local accountants, etc. When we were early on, we did subscribe to the likes of Unbiased, for example, because you pay for leads. In my experience, the quality wasn't great. It was all right. Wasn't terrible, but we got you just pay as you go. Yeah, I can't remember what it was. It was pretty inexpensive at the time, £100 or something, and we were meeting people who were actively looking for our services at the time, and we got going. Haven't been on those platforms, or what's the other one?
Vouch for.
Yeah, not on those, but that's you've got to. I assume if you're early stage, you've allocated a bit of a budget for marketing.
Yeah,
so register for Unbiased, register on Vouch for, get some traction, get some prospects in your pipeline, but also be doing the old school things, networking, going out there, shaking hands, making connections. Because at one point, you probably want to come off those Vouch for platforms and have greater control over your own future business, as opposed to just getting inbound of randoms that don't know you from Adam. That's my two penneth. Della Voce, you've done a lot of work and paid a lot of money.
Yeah,
on marketing.
I think
thoughts?
We've covered this in a good few episodes, so I'd say listen to the back catalogue of Trap, because that's a large question. I could go on forever on that.
Yeah.
But create content on LinkedIn, I would say would be a good place to start. But yeah, that's a long and detailed discussion.
It is.
If I just touch off it now, I don't think I'll do it any.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Joe, have you got anything pithy to add?
Yeah, Nick, I think having run two different types of businesses, I think the big thing is knowing your audience and not trying to please everybody. And I'm sure you covered this in previous podcasts, but when I was in a commercial fitness business, I was very much about the community, looking for my 250 to 300 clients on an active basis, and really trying to create that niche of sense of community and creating, this is what we are. We don't apologize to people who don't like what we are, but this is what we are, so that we get into the right niche. In my coaching business now, it pretty much works off referrals because it's a much smaller stable of clients.
Right.
And a typical client will tell another typical client that this is what I do and this is what I don't do, and I find that works. So there's no outreach marketing at the moment, but when I was looking for that community, the marketing was very much about telling our story. Very similar to how Carl tells his story with Metis. It's, we don't apologize. Our service is this, and this is what we enjoy doing, and it might suit you.
Love it. That, as anyone listens to the show might know, I'm very much of fit in or golf.
Yeah.
Basically. And I think Ultra is also wide the same way. Okay, that's great stuff. Alan, if you could lower your hand, please. I've done it for you throughout the episode, but I'm losing the will to live. We're going to move now on to the next section. Joe, you'll go last in this section because I'm going to spring this on you, but we want you to think about one book you might have read in the last month, one podcast you listened to, something you watched, some piece of content that you consumed that you've really liked. Because this part of the show is what many people call Culture Corner. And I'm going first in this quiet month of August. This has nothing to do with this thing of ours. It's not a story where the ending is unknown. Everyone knows what happens. But the Titanic still captivates for various reasons, a bit ghoulish perhaps, but there's a great podcast out called Titanic Ship of Dreams. It's 14 episodes, narrated by Paul McGann, who's one of the best narrators. Very few adverts. Each episode's about an hour long, and the whole thing is captivating. You get drawn into this thing. Such a tragic story, of course, as we all know. But what you might not know from the film, which came out in 1997, it was a whole series of random events that had to go wrong. And it was just so unfortunate. The ship shouldn't have even been sailing that time of year. It should have sailed 2 months earlier. If it had sailed 2 months earlier, there wouldn't have been icebergs in the North Atlantic, and so on. And there are other things. Really worth your time. Just get out there when you're walking, when you're doing your 45 minutes of low impact, but just resetting the brain, maybe. And you want to have something going on between your ears that's not your own internal thoughts and the many voices that we all have. Well, I certainly do. Listen to the Titanic Ship of Dreams podcast.
My one is Anthony Pompliano, How to Live an Extraordinary Life. So this is, it's a really cool book. I listened to it. It's very short letters he's written to his two kids on kind of life lessons or advice for life. And I suppose it's relevant for me at the moment because the Widger triplets are awaiting their leaving cert results on the 22nd of August, and who knows what they might bring, but it's likely that people will be flying the nest here, and it's kind of poignant. It's certainly a different phase for me looking at that, and I also had my mum's 80th birthday at the weekend, and when you look at things really like money and cars and things, they just don't matter, and I think this book is beautiful because there's a few things they matter to an extent, but the most important things are not those things. It's about family, it's about friends, it's about connection.
Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya.
Well said, Roger. By the way, a lovely family photograph that you shared in our WhatsApp group. Really nice. Nice to see you all got your own pairs of shoes rather than the Scottish thing of wearing sharing hand-me-downs. What's that about? Anyway,
good luck, kids. Good luck, kids, in exams.
Storyteller.
By the way, Carl, I just have to point something out to you. You might need to work on your cognitive focus, because that very book was one of my Culture Corners about 2 months ago, and you said, that sounds brilliant, I think I'll get it. I
was wondering. I was going, how did I come across this book?
I must admit, the name Anthony Pompliano did sound familiar because it's obviously not a common name.
My apologies.
That's all right. No,
there's a
that's
second.
fine. You took.
second endorsement.
No, that's good. You took Storyteller's little lead and ran with it. I loved it. That's okay.
With some of us,
okay.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Sorry, Alan.
No, it is,
That's
and it is,
funny.
and I will doubly endorse it. It is a great book, and it's, as you say, short, just anecdotes and tales and stories, and particularly poignant if you got kids who are growing up like we have. My contribution this week is quick and easy book to read. It's called The £1 Million One Man Empire. It's by Charlie Hutton. £1 Million One Man Empire. Again, I don't really know where I got this from, but I bought it and I read it on holiday. It's a quick read, and I thought it's so relevant. Now, I'm not a one-man band. I'm not a one-man operation. 50% of advisors in the UK are a one-advisor firm. All right, just to be clear. So this is relevant to at least half the market. But I would say even if you're part of a larger organization, you are a one-man or one-woman operator. We all are to some extent. This is a really simple, effective book, and 80 to 90% of it is bang on applicable to financial planners. And just focuses, it cuts out all the usual bullshit, cuts to the chase. This is how to become a £1 million a year revenue human being, person in business. Mentioned it to Ultra. You read it, have you? You're reading it? Pretty good, isn't it?
It's really good. I've read quite a few of these books in the past because I'm sort of in this space. I'm halfway through it. It's brilliant. It is very relevant to financial advisors. And he's also got a good email newsletter. It is very much straight talking, but mentions all the right things. It's things that we've mentioned already on the podcast. Be ultra focused on who your audience is. Offer one simple service. Don't make it high friction in terms of charging. Like just all the stuff that advisors struggle with. So do buy this book.
And it's $1.99 presently on Kindle, because I've just bought it. Right, Ultra, wrap up Culture Corner before our guest.
Okay, right. My Culture Corner is the Lex Friedman Show podcast YouTube. He's got Demis Habibis, who is the founder of DeepMind, which got bought by Google, and Demis is one of the smartest AI thinkers in the world. He's very high up in Google AI. He's a London boy, a chess protege, incredibly smart human being. I love listening to him, so do check it out. That's my recommendation. Over to you, Joe.
Joe O'Connor, give us your Culture Corner.
Thanks, Nick. One book that I was recommended to me an awful lot that I eventually read, and I was a little bit apprehensive about it, was from Bronnie Ware, and it was the 5 Regrets of the Dying, which sounds a little bit morbid, but it's an excellent read. It's not my typical read, but I really, really enjoyed it, and it put me in focus as a parent, as a partner, as a business owner, as an academic. It just says, what really matters, that if you only had 24 hours left, what would matter? And I find it really, really good. I suppose a lot of my reading is around my research, so it's in that field. But that's one book that I think is transferable to everyone.
That's Joe, for your PhD that you're doing a bit of research. How can we help?
Do you know, it'd be great, Carl, and to all the guys in the calls and all the listeners, I'm looking at C-suite executives and business leaders and how their health, fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle habits can influence their cognitive performance, as we said already today. But I couldn't get to you guys through a cold email, or I couldn't get to you through a LinkedIn post. The people I'm studying are very hard to get to. So if you wouldn't mind, guys, sharing the link to my survey, it's a 20-minute anonymous survey, and it's a beliefs and values. A lot of what we said earlier about the social media influence, a lot of the stuff people are hearing isn't what C-suite executives and business leaders are actually doing. And I'm really looking for 1,000 business leaders from around the globe to tell me what they genuinely believe and value. And then I'm going to go into the research, validate it, and come out with a product that will quieten the noise on health and fitness and cognitive performance. So if you guys could share that, I would be extremely grateful.
If you send the link over, Joe, in the next half an hour, it'll be in the show notes. If you're 31 minutes, it won't be.
Yeah,
all right?
Just
fit in or
don't miss the deadline.
I'm on it, Nick. I'm on it. Thank you.
Good lad, good lad. And the 5 Regrets of the Dying as well is on Kindle at 99p. I just bought that as well, so there we go. I'm just loading up my Kindles. All right, nice, joyful beach reading. Okay, well, I think, dear Trappist, that is the end of the show. As episode 77 comes to an end, and slides down the U-bend of Father Time. Thank you, dear Trappist, for your support, your input into the show. Please do leave a review on whatever app lets you do that. It's obviously normally iTunes, but some of the Android apps are letting you leave reviews now. 6 out of 5 stars is mandatory. Thanks, Joe O'Connor, for your time today. I really enjoyed that. Something a bit different, something a bit left field, but it's relevant to all of us, business owners. We're carrying our stresses and strains in our own different ways. So until the next time, dear Trappists, we'll see you on the other side. Take care out there, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Enjoy your summers.
That was good. The guest was a bit weak, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
Still here.
We're not getting him on again.